Let's speak more about the situation around poultry and eggs and this avian flu outbreak. We're joined by University of Pretoria Senior Lecturer and Specialist Poultry Veterinarian, Dr Shahn Bisschop. A very good evening to you, Doctor. Good to have your time. Ultimately, have we even fully understood what it is that we are grappling with here as far as this outbreak is concerned?
Good evening to you and the viewers. Yes, I think we have a very good understanding of the virus that we're dealing with. We know it's a very nasty strain of avian influenza, which is highly contagious in chickens specifically. And yes, we've looked at it in some detail. The problem is not so much understanding it as managing to get it under control at this stage.
And is that being done properly?
Well, it's a very difficult situation. We find ourselves with well over 100 farms affected, somewhere around 10 million birds affected. Even a well-resourced country would struggle with an outbreak which was spreading at this kind of rate. So we are struggling, let's be honest.
And one of the things that we're seeing now is a warning from some people, and I wonder if you would agree with some of your colleagues who are suggesting that things may very well, as far as this outbreak is concerned, get worse before they get better. And if so, I'm curious about what the worst-case scenario would actually be.
Well, in terms of the outbreak itself, we saw that it probably peaked a couple of weeks ago. That is to say, the rate at which it was spreading was more rapid than it is now. But it is steadily moving its way from Gauteng, where it started, sort of in concentric circles around that area. So it is far from over. As far as consumers are concerned, of course, the impact is somewhat delayed. We're losing mostly broiler breeder birds, which means that the broilers, which are the meat chickens, will only be in a shortage situation in a few weeks' time. And in the case of eggs, well, we've already seen those off the shelves. It's the recovery that's going to take a while. These are long-lived birds, and it's very likely that we're looking at a 6 to 12-month period of further disruption, even if the outbreak were to stop right now.
And how would that delay, especially in recovery, impact you and I, or people who buy chicken either to sell chickens or indeed those who eat poultry?
That's a difficult one to answer, and let's be honest, I'm a vet, not an economist, but one would expect that there is a risk of some shortages, there's a risk of various disruptions in the market, but I also know that there are a lot of plans in place to try to close those gaps. So whether there will be a massive impact on consumers, it's very difficult to say at this stage.
Let me ask you then a veterinary question, Dr. Bisschop, on the issue of what's being done about containment, because government language has largely at this moment been about containing the further spread of this outbreak. They say they think they've got it under control. You were telling us that the peak may have already have passed. Is there a surefire way of preventing a further spread, like completely stopping it from spreading?
Well, at this stage, the measures we usually use, which we would term biosecurity, that is movement control, access control, and trying to limit the movement of birds and people around farms, is what we used in the past for the previous outbreaks, which were successful. At this stage, that does not seem to be as successful with this strain. So we need additional measures, and essentially that's going to come down to vaccination of birds against avian flu.
And is detection easy? I ask this for people who we're hearing now, we're just reporting, in fact, that some retailers, restaurants, etc., have had to now look to smaller businesses in the poultry sector or elsewhere to find eggs, etc. Should there be an outbreak, is it something that any sort of, let's say, farmer would be able to spot almost immediately?
It's not difficult. Usually, as I say, one becomes suspicious when you have a lot of dead chickens. So from there, that would be the first suspicion for any farmer. And the laboratory follow-up is quite simple. You would need to either contact a private veterinarian or a state veterinarian, and that can be confirmed within about 24 hours. So diagnosis is not difficult.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shahn Bisschop. Good to speak to you, specialist poultry veterinarian at the University of Pretoria, where he's a senior lecturer. Thank you for your time, sir.